Welcome everyone to the Tale of Tachos. So what is a tacho? Well, a tacho is like nachos, but instead of tortilla chips, it's made with tater tots. Because the inventor of this food was also inspired by poutine, we're going to talk about it in a minute. Poutine is a Canadian food that is made of French fries topped with cheese curds and gravy. It first appeared in rural Quebec in the 1950s and was widely popularized across Canada and beyond in the 90s. Poutine may be found everywhere, from fine dining menus at the top restaurants to fast food chains. So, to quote the inventor of the food, "I was trying to figure out some way to do poutine with gravy and cheese curds with tater tots, but I'm glad I went with the tacho thing. I'd hate, 9 years later, to have a reporter call me and ask me about being the father of poo tots." Alright, so on to our first ingredient / meal that inspired this is obviously nachos. So, nachos first appeared in 1943 in Piedras Negras, a small Mexican city which is very near to the U.S. military base of Fort Duncan, Texas. A group of about a dozen U.S. military wives, whose husbands were stationed near the base, had spent a day shopping when they decided to stop for some dinner, only to find that all the nearby restaurants were closed. So Ignacia Anaya, a maitre d' or chef, depending on which account you follow, at the Old Victory Club in Piedras Negras, took pity on them and decided to cook something out of what was left in the kitchen. So he sliced and fried some tortilla chips, covered them with shredded cheddar and sliced jalapenos, and put the concoction in the oven for a couple minutes. He then served the inventive snack to the ladies, naming it after himself, Ignacio, or rather, the nickname Nacho, hence, Nachos Especiales. The next food that we gotta talk about, obviously, is tater tots. So, Ore-Ida Potato Products Incorporated was formed in 1952 with the first and largest Ore-Ida potato processing facility located in Oregon, right near the border of Idaho. It was here that the founder F. Nephi Grigg procured many of his potatoes. Thus, the brand name Ore-Ida was born, combining the first few letters of Oregon and Idaho. Tater tots shredded potatoes were born in 1953 when the Ore-Ida founders were trying to figure out what to do with their leftover slivers of cut up potatoes. They came up with the novel idea of chopping up the potato slivers, adding flour and seasoning, and then pushing the mash through holes and slicing off pieces of what came out on the other side. So that way, tater tots were born. Let's talk more about the dish itself, the tacho. What is a tacho? What are its origins? The first mention of proper tater tot nachos in any media was in 2006 with the opening of this Oaks Bottom public house in Selwood. The man responsible was named Jim Parker, a prolific publican and former journalist who opened the pub and with new old Lompoc owner Jerry Fester. Parker was in charge of the menu at Oaks Bottom, so one evening before opening, while drinking with one of his bartenders, Parker suggested an unorthodox appetizer. He says, "I have an idea that sounds a little nuts, but I think it could be really big here. I think I'll call them nacho tots." No, they should be called tachos. So Jerry Fester, Parker's partner and the pub's cook, were less than taken with the idea. He said, "They looked at me like I was growing a third ear. They said, 'That sounds like stoner food.' They were humoring me to put them on the menu, but it ended up being one of our most ordered items. The Oaks Bottom tachos are topped with cheddar and jack cheese, chopped tomato, jalapenos, black olives, red onion, sour cream, and salsa." To keep going with Jim's background story here, he says, "The reason it all really came about is because I lived this deprived childhood where I never got tater tots, and once I discovered them, I was hog wild over them. Also, I hated the way tortilla chips got all soggy in nachos." Our final question is, where can I find tachos? I figured out there are a few chains that carry it, which are namely Johnny Rockets, Sonic Drive-In, and McMenamins, which span most of these addresses. There are a few smaller places like Disney's Hollywood Studios sells it. Slater's 50/50 is like a chain near Boston. But I was really surprised to find how many places you can conceivably buy tachos. There's still a lot of countries that have gaps where you can't and it's just not available, but tachos can be found in on every single continent, which I think is really cool. overall, I think the world is coming to appreciate the idea of loaded potatoes in like little bite-sized fried forms, and that it will become the next all-American food based on the fact that many chains have picked it up.